Good morning, traders. Welcome to Before the Bell, your home for actionable pre-market content. This is Chris Buss with Traders Profit Compass with your morning look at markets for Wednesday, February 2nd. It is 7 o'clock as I'm starting the video. And as always, please run that player at 1.5x for maximum efficiency. A lot of overnight movement, a lot of action going on. Large caps up 0.75%. NASDAQ up 1.5%, small caps 0.3%. Nat gas is up 5.5% and getting back through $5. On the macro front, we've got auto sales, ADP, oil inventories, and then we've got a big OPEC Plus meeting. I'm not sure the timing on that. Remember, I think they meet in Vienna, over there in Europe, so I'm not sure the timing on that or when some kind of an announcement will be made. But just remember that there are quite a number of OPEC countries that have not been able to meet their production quotas as stated now. So if they come out and say, oh yeah, we're raising production 400,000 barrels, I mean, it's almost meaningless unless Saudi steps in and says, oh, we'll make up the difference of any shortfall in the other countries, but I don't think that is going to happen. Oil continues to be bought on any kind of even little micro dip, so I think the stars are aligned to keep driving that higher. The fly in the ointment would probably be if there was a U.S., Ukraine, Russia, cancel that, no more problems. I think you'd see a pullback in oil, but I believe if that does happen, that would be a buying opportunity. Over on the earnings front, we've got D.R. Horton, AbbVie, and Humana this morning, along with a bunch of other names. And then in the afternoon, a little more exciting, we got Facebook, Qualcomm, Spotify, KLAC, the semiconductor producer. And you can go on to the blog site to find a more complete list. And then, of course, you can always go to earningswhispers.com and get the massive list as we're in the thick of the earnings season. So last night, we had AMD and Google, plus some others reporting. AMD blew it out of the water. Very positive call from Lisa Su, the CEO that has done such a nice job with AMD over the last, 5-7 years. Just bringing that company to the forefront with exciting technologies, and also taking advantage of missteps by Intel to capture a lot of market share. So AMD, the last I saw, was trading about $130, up about $15 to $18 from the close yesterday. So that's lifting not only sentiment, but also the SMH, which we've been focused on, and the Qs, so that's being real helpful. And then the big news was Google announcing a 20-for-1 split, I believe effective July 1st. And I've got the details. I just clipped the release and pasted it into the blog this morning. And remember what we've seen in other stocks that have announced splits. NVIDIA went on a sick run when it last reported a split, put on a lot of market cap on that split. And what was the other one? Well, we know about Apple. Apple had the split. There was one other one that escapes my mind. It's in the blog. But regardless, Google's going to open at all-time highs. I wouldn't be surprised if this thing goes on a 4 or 5 month run into that print. So we'll talk about it on the chart, but I think it's something to really, really watch because it seems to ignite the fires of retail to pile in a stock that's splitting, even though there's no I mean, it's market cap neutral. It doesn't splitting a stock doesn't change anything financially, but it does seem to spark a lot of interest when that happens. And so don't discount the possibility that this thing could run, God knows how much into that July announcement. So certainly something to watch. Okay, we got a lot of gaps in the charts this morning and a lot of activity. Just to recap, let's just look here for a second at the NYMO oscillator. Not going to spend a lot of time. We were oversold. Now we've got a huge bounce up into neutral territory. The oscillators are of no particular benefit at this time. Right now, it's all about overhead resistance, support areas, and Fibonacci retracements of the bounce. So going on to SPY, we've broken above 450, which was our main overhead resistance from this $20 trading range. Now, I think if you've been in and survived the bounce, 450 becomes a very important line going forward because it's a demarcation between bullish possibilities to go up here to the midpoint of this trading range or even fill this gap, possibly even up to the top of this range. And then once you come back down, if you were to break 450, that would be a great place whenever it happens to put on a short, because then will have looked like a kickback rally that has failed. So keep 450 on the radar and highlighted on your charts. Now, zooming down to the 2-hour, we see our Fibonacci retracements in brown. We've got this gap open this morning. I think you've got resistance here at 456.75. That is the 50. That is a big level today as far as the anybody that's trading it, bulls, however you want to look at it. Remember our trading tenets, recapturing major EMAs or levels from below is bullish. So if you are in from anywhere along here and we gap up and it turns out to be a gap and go, you can be long against the 50. That would certainly be a place where I would be raising strikes, raising stops, and then see if we can't get this gap fill up towards 465 above and check that technical event off of the chart of backfilling a gap. Now, the other scenario is they sell it down real quick on the open to fill this gap. I would be a buyer there around 452.50. And if they were to take it down all the way to 450, I would be a buyer there as well. Right at this juncture, I want to keep a long bias until we see evidence otherwise. What would give me pause? Well, if we went up here, got rejected by the 50, came back down, and then lost 450, that would get me thinking, okay, breakdown, kickback rally, 50 EMA rejection, and support fail at 450. That would lead me to believe lower. So 450, again, is a really, really important level on the charts. You can see here we do have a little technical resistance at 458, a large volume over price bar here, right where price is trading. So keep that in mind. But then we've got a larger prize above, which is a $5 gap that runs from 460 to 465. Okay, Qs. Obviously, AMD and Google lifting this morning. We're set to gap open up around 370, 371. This gap is just an approximation. Big technical event yesterday was the recapture of the 200 EMA. It was some really, I'm not going to say rough, but frustrating. I didn't play it particularly well. There was some sharp, well, we'll see it in the shorter time frames. Let's just focus on the big picture right now. We've got a gap. If they sell it down to 363, 362.50, I'd be a buyer there on a back touch of the 200. If they gap and go, I would be looking towards getting a move up into 375, 376 with a chance to fill this gap. Where am I at here? Hold on a second. Apologize for this. Don't have my charts in order. Thought I had that. Here we go. Sorry. So we've got a gap in here from yesterday's open up to 371. I think you can stay long against 370 and see if we don't get a move from 375-ish to 380 for a fill of that gap. And then 380, like I said yesterday, is going to be a really tough nut to crack. Here's that morning gap I've got penciled in. You see that there was a line of resistance here at 370. Now that 370 should act as support this morning on any kind of little pullback. And so that'll be part of a tricky open whenever you've got an opening gap of any size. And then here you see the overhead gap and then 380 at key resistance. IWM had a pretty good move yesterday, up about 1%. Can get up here into the 206 range for that 50% halfback. And if it really starts feeling it, if the whole market lifts, we could go back into 210, which will be a huge line of resistance there. Here you see it on the 2-hour chart. I have a little intermediate level on lower time frames at 204, but really anything above 202 keeps the door open to 206 and then potentially 210. So still a constructive setup as long as we hold 202. And here you can see some resolution on that with the door open to 206 with a little void in the chart where price could move fast. Facebook. Excuse me. Okay, Facebook had a good day yesterday. I know it doesn't look like a lot, but it was up almost 2%. And I guess on the back of Google or AMD or positive sentiment, it has gapped all the way up to 330 here this morning with So we're going to have at least a $10, $12 gap when trading starts. I've got a line of resistance at essentially 333.50. And then there's a little support in here at 327.50. So this is the combination of not only the gap up this morning, but there was a prior gap back here that was never filled. So big open this morning. I think if it's a gap and go situation, and remember there's earnings tonight, so if there's a mini run after this big open and you get above 333, I think you can be long and look for 340. And then you'll have to decide what you're going to do with earnings. I did hold a small position from last night. So what I'm probably going to do is just wait and see that first 10 or 15 minutes, see what's going to happen, and then probably close it out if it looks like they're going to backfill it, and then just day trade it until the earnings announcement. I won't hold in earnings, so that's that. Apple, just a choppy consolidation day. Had several reach back candles to 172 and then finished strong up near 175. I think 175 is your pivot. If it can break 175, just on a measured move basis, let's see, 168 to 172 is $4. $4 on 172 is 176. I just say 177 would be your measured move target. And then if it can break above 177.50, I think you've got a nice path towards 179, 180. Moving on to Tesla, just flagging here under resistance at 935. I haven't looked pre-market to see if there's any kind of gap or anything, but your overhead resistance is at 970, 975, and then at 1,000. So fast move off the bottom of the channel, breakout above the channel, and pinned right below resistance there. So that's a constructive chart with a nice bull flag. Frustrating day when Microsoft had a nice opening run, and then it's just been consolidating here. Made some moves back into 305. Doesn't look like a lot, but if you've got a weekly option, that you bought at 310, and then you get a $5 or $8 pullback, you notice it. And so there were a number of traders, including myself, that were getting a little bit of frustration on that one. This was during when the Qs could just not get anything going for the majority of the day up until 2:30, when we saw a big impulsive 5-minute candle. And then I just let this one go. But I'm looking for it's set to open right around 310. So if 310 can be taken out, the next level is 312.50, and then for a potential run back up to 318, 320. And although there's some resistance in this area, I think Google is going to be a big sentiment booster along with AMD. So at least initially, I think there might be the potential for a nice run across the FATMAAN names. And then we'll have to see if and when the sellers take over. Whether we got more legs at this point, or they're going to say, oh, great, gap up, a perfect chance to sell it off. We'll have to see how that plays out. Amazon, nice move, up 1%. We've got this 30-30 level as resistance. Notice the gap in the charts, the void over here. So I think you break above 30-30, I think there's a good chance you could get up into 3,100 and then 3,150 before it runs into these prior lows, which will be resistance. Here's the Google chart, just incredible. Going from 2,700, opening at an all-time high up here at 30.50. At least I think that's an all-time high. Let me look. I went the wrong way. Oh, yeah, that was the daily chart. Yeah, that was an all-time high here at 30.50. So, the prior all-time high was 3,000. So, anybody that ever bought the chart, the stock, at any price is going to be profitable on the open this morning. And so, if there's a little bit of a pullback to 3,000 at the prior all-time high, you've literally got the whole chart as support. I would be a buyer there. I know it's a damn expensive stock. I know the options are damn expensive. If you want to participate, buy one. And then you can set your stop just below 3,000 and then see what happens going forward into this split announcement and into July. And with any luck, get another, 10% out of it, another $300. Maybe that comes really quickly. Maybe it takes a while. But I think unless the whole market just falls apart, or unless they try to fade this thing, 100%, then, obviously it didn't work. And I would tell you, on the short side, this will, if there's a whole market collapse, when they start raising rates, that may be one to watch on the downside for this whole gap to fill on some kind of, big major market turbulent event. I'm favoring the long side until further notice. As long as it stays above 3,000, I think the bulls are definitely in control of this one. Bulls are in control of Netflix, that's for sure. Had the impulse higher on Ackman, got a boost from Reed Hastings, and this thing is just ground. No red candles. We've got a pivot here today at 460 at the midpoint of the chart. If things stay bullish, I think this gap is going to get filled. Now, if there's weakness at any point, there was a little consolidation here. You can see several hours where it didn't do anything right here at 442.50. If you're not in and you don't just want to, jump in at any point, I think that's your first pullback buy is back in here at 442.50. And if there were to be a bigger pullback into 420 or even 410, breakout back test, I'd be a buyer down in 420, 410, if the market is still constructive. And if things fall apart, if it loses 410, you got to be leaning bearish there for this move back down to the gap, probable gap fill, and probably a move back down here towards 360 to back test this low. Now, I know that's a lot of travel. I mean, that's $100 off, but as we can see, it just went up $100 in 3 or 4 days. So it can certainly move fast when it wants to. And then wrapping up here with semis, we've got a gap up this morning with AMD. I've got some overhead resistance at 287.50. And then if we go to the daily chart, we've got the bottom of the range at 290. So that's going to be a very stiff level of resistance. That would be a place where I'd be looking for that thing to stall. But if it didn't, if it broke above 290 and held it, I think you can be long there, looking for a move back up to 300 and potentially back to the top of the box if they want to keep pushing it. So that would be, the setup now is breakdown, back test to 290, and then roll over. But like I said, if they can break it above 290 and hold it, that will kind of invalidate that look. And then that would be a recapture of the 50. You can see it coming right in there at 289. So that's going to be a big level of resistance going back up. So let's wrap it up there. A lot of nice bounce plays going on. A lot to keep you busy. Remember Facebook and Qualcomm this afternoon. If those are both are positive, that's going to give more juice to SMH and the Qs. What else? OPEC for you oil traders, energy equities. I'm literally embarrassed that I don't really have any energy besides BTU, which is, coal name. It had a nice day yesterday, but that's more of an ancillary play on energy than anything else. So, anyways, if there was a dip to buy, I would be a motivated buyer in energy. Had a really good day in commodities yesterday. I noticed our DBA was up. I think corn, soy, and wheat were all up. Coffee was up. We're in that one. So a lot going on. Stay on your toes. Keep those overhead resistance levels at the forefront of your thinking. And certainly keep going to the bank. When you cross a significant technical level, roll up your stops and your strikes, make a quick deposit to the bank, stay long until we have evidence that this bounce has petered out and it looks like the bears would be taking over. So let's wrap it up there. If you're new to the channel, welcome. Please hit the subscribe button, the alarm bell, the post notification icon. You'll get all my YouTube content. Then quickly jump over in the show notes. Find that link to the blog site where you can join our team with just your email. And then you'll get my content morning, noon, or night. Give me a thumbs up. Pass the link along to your friends, family, trading circle, anybody that appreciates technical analysis. I'd like to think I do a lot of the hard work for you, finding the objective levels to trade against. Then you can devote yourself to executing around those levels and honing your trading skills. So this has been Chris Buss with Traders Profit Compass. Talk to you next time.